What if I told you that an Amish woman has never walked into a pharmacy to buy a sleep aid, a cold remedy, or a digestive supplement, not because she cannot afford them, but because everything she needs is already growing 10 feet from her back door? Garlic. Garlic is planted in fall, harvested in midsummer, and braided into bundles that hang in the kitchen through the rest of the year. In cooking, it goes into nearly everything: soups, meat dishes, pickles, and roasted vegetables. In the sick room, raw garlic is the first response to infection. One or two raw cloves eaten at the first sign of a cold. The same bulb that flavors the meal protects the person eating it. Echinacea. Echinacea is a purple coneflower that blooms in midsummer and dies back completely in winter. The Amish grow it not for the flower, but for what the flower produces: a root, a leaf, and a dried petal that each serve a different purpose. The root is dug in autumn, dried, and stored. The leaves and flower heads are harvested at peak bloom and dried in the shade. When winter arrives and respiratory illness moves through the household, echinacea tea is the first thing brewed. 8 ounces of boiling water, a measure of dried root and flour, steeped for 15 minutes. Children receive it mixed with honey. The plant, grown in summer, becomes the cold remedy used from November through March. Lavender. Lavender is one of the few herbs in an Amish garden that is both functional and visibly beautiful, though the Amish do not grow it for its appearance. They grow it because it works. Dried lavender bundles hung near sleeping areas and tucked inside pillowcases promote restful sleep. The aromatic compounds in lavender have a measurable calming effect on the nervous system. Amish mothers place dried lavender sachets in the cradles of restless infants. A strong lavender tea drunk in the evening reduces anxiety and tension after a long physical workday. Lavender oil, infused by steeping fresh flowers in a carrier oil for several weeks, is applied to headaches, minor burns, and insect bites. It is also added to homemade soap and skin salves that Amish women produce for household use and occasional sale. One plant, calming, healing, and practical in equal measure. Yarrow. Yarrow is a wild-looking plant with flat-topped clusters of small white or pale yellow flowers and feathery, deeply divided leaves. It grows at the edges of Amish fields without being planted, and Amish women have harvested it from those edges for generations. Its primary use is wound care. Yarrow contains acyleic acid, a compound that promotes blood clotting and slows bleeding from minor cuts and abrasions. A poultice made from fresh crushed yarrow leaves pressed against a wound stops bleeding faster than a plain cloth. Yarrow tea is used internally for fever reduction and as a mild anti-inflammatory during illness. It is one of the oldest documented medicinal herbs in the European tradition and one of the most quietly reliable plants on any Amish property. Chamomile. Chamomile is one of the most versatile herbs in any Amish garden and one of the easiest to grow. It self-seeds readily, meaning a single planting can sustain itself for years without intervention. The flowers are harvested when fully open, dried on flat trays in a well-ventilated space, and stored in tins through the winter. The uses are multiple and distinct. Chamomile tea, brewed strong and drunk before bed, promotes sleep. The compounds in chamomile interact with the same brain receptors targeted by mild sedatives. The same tea, brewed lighter and sipped slowly, settles an upset stomach and relieves gas. Applied as a cool compress to the skin, chamomile reduces inflammation and soothes rashes. Amish mothers use chamomile tea routinely for fussy infants, for themselves during difficult pregnancies, and for elderly family members who cannot sleep. 3 problems. 1 plant. No purchase required. Peppermint. Peppermint is the herb most likely to escape the garden entirely if it is not contained. It spreads aggressively through underground runners, which is why most Amish women plant it in a dedicated corner or in a buried container. The containment effort is worth it. Peppermint has more documented uses in an Amish household than almost any other herb on the property. Peppermint tea relieves indigestion, nausea, and bloating. The menthol in the leaves relaxes the muscles of the digestive tract. A strong peppermint brew inhaled as steam clears sinus congestion faster than most over-the-counter products. Fresh leaves crushed and applied to the skin cool inflammation and relieve minor itching. Dried peppermint scattered near doorways and along the edges of food storage areas repels mice and certain insects without traps or poison. Amish women harvest peppermint just before it flowers when the menthol concentration in the leaves is at its highest. The harvest is dried, bundled, and stored. One plant doing 4 jobs across 12 months. Valerian. Valerian is a tall perennial with small pink-white flowers and a root that smells, to most people, deeply unpleasant. The smell does not discourage Amish women from growing it. Valerian root has been used to treat insomnia and nervous tension since ancient Greece, and controlled studies have confirmed what centuries of use already established. It reduces the time it takes to fall asleep and improves sleep quality without the dependency risk of pharmaceutical sleep aids. In an Amish household with no electricity and a workday that begins before sunrise, sleep is not optional, and sleep aids that create dependency are not practical. Valerian fills that gap. The root is harvested in autumn of the plant's second year, when the active compounds are most concentrated. It is dried slowly at low temperature. High heat destroys the compounds that make it effective. Once dried, it is stored in sealed containers away from light and prepared as a tea in the evening, steeped for 10 to 15 minutes and drunk warm. Some Amish women combine it with chamomile for a stronger effect. The two herbs address sleep from different mechanisms, chamomile calming the mind, valerian relaxing the body, and together they work more reliably than either alone. No prescription, no pharmacy, just a root dug from the garden in October. Thyme. Thyme is one of the most underestimated herbs in the Amish garden. It is present in almost every kitchen as a cooking herb added to soups, meat stews, roasted chicken, and bread stuffing, but its medicinal role is what makes it indispensable. Thyme contains thymol, a compound with strong antimicrobial properties that has been used in commercial mouthwashes and antiseptic preparations. The Amish do not use it in those forms. They use it as a tea. When someone in the household develops a chest cough, bronchial congestion, or the early signs of a respiratory infection, thyme tea is brewed and drunk several times a day. Crushed fresh thyme leaves applied to the throat and covered with a warm cloth are used in some Amish households for severe sore throats and tonsillitis. The same herb that simmered in the stew pot all afternoon is dried and stored specifically for winter respiratory season. Thyme is a hardy perennial that requires almost no maintenance once established. It tolerates poor soil, limited water, and cold winters better than most garden herbs. An Amish woman plants it once and harvests it for years. In the kitchen, it adds depth to every savory dish. In the medicine cabinet, it addresses some of the most common ailments that hit a large household through a cold winter. Oregano. Oregano is present in every Amish herb garden and used so routinely in cooking that its medicinal value is easy to overlook. It goes into tomato-based dishes, egg dishes, meat rubs, and bread. It is dried in large quantities in late summer and stored in sealed jars through the winter. What most people do not know about oregano, and what Amish women have understood through generations of practical use, is that it contains 2 compounds, carvacrol and thymol, that have demonstrated antimicrobial activity against a wide range of bacteria and fungi. The Amish do not cite those compound names. They simply know that oregano oil rubbed onto the chest helps a cough, that a strong oregano tea drunk at the first sign of illness shortens its duration, that adding significant quantities of fresh or dried oregano to food during illness seasons the dish and supports the body at the same time. Oregano oil, extracted by infusing fresh leaves in a carrier oil over several weeks, is used topically for minor skin infections and fungal conditions. It is also added in small quantities to warm water and used as a gargle for throat infections. The Amish relationship with oregano is not sophisticated or ritualized, it is simply habitual. The herb is always in the garden, always in the kitchen, and always in the first response to illness. That consistency, maintained across generations, is the entire point. Street Johnswort and ginseng. Of all the herbs in an Amish garden, street Johnswort and American ginseng are the two that surprise outside observers most. Street. John's wort is a yellow-flowered perennial that blooms reliably around the feast day of John the Baptist in late June, a detail the Amish note with the same matter-of-fact precision they bring to every seasonal observation. The flowers and leaves are harvested at peak bloom, infused in oil for topical use, or dried for tea. Street John's wort is used in Amish households primarily for two purposes. The first is wound healing, the infused oil applied to minor cuts, bruises, and nerve pain along the skin. The second is mood support during the long darkness of winter, when the lack of sunlight and the confinement of cold months can affect temperament in a large household. American ginseng is a different plant entirely, a slow-growing root that takes 3 or more years to reach harvestable size. The Amish cultivate it for energy and cognitive function, particularly for men doing heavy physical labor across long seasons and for managing blood sugar. Ginseng tea, made from the dried root, is a slow remedy rather than an acute one. It is taken regularly over weeks and months rather than in response to a single illness. Both plants require patience to grow and years of accumulated knowledge to use well. Both are present in Amish herb gardens that have been tended by the same family for generations. Burdock. Burdock is not a plant most people grow intentionally. It is a large, coarse plant with broad leaves and burr-covered seed heads that attach to clothing and animal fur, the original inspiration, as it happens, for Velcro. It grows along roadsides, fence lines, and the edges of fields, and most people treat it as a weed. Amish women treat it as a resource. Burdock root is harvested in the plant's first year, before it flowers, when the root is still tender and rich in inulin, a prebiotic fiber that supports digestive health. The root is eaten as a vegetable, sliced thin and cooked in stir-fry style dishes, added to soups, or pickled. In Japan, where burdock root is a culinary staple known as gobo, its dietary uses are well documented. The Amish arrived at the same uses independently through European herbal tradition. Medicinally, burdock root is used as a mild diuretic and liver support herb, prepared as a tea or decoction. The large leaves, steamed until soft, are used as a natural bandage material laid over burns or skin irritations with a honey-based salve beneath them. They hold moisture against the wound and reduce inflammation. Burdock is one of the few herbs in the Amish system that is rarely planted at all. It simply appears on the edges of the property, as it has always appeared, and an Amish woman who knows what she is looking at stops, harvests what she needs, and leaves the rest to seed again for next year. A study of Old Order Amish in Lancaster County found that 71% of Amish women regularly use herbal supplements compared to 23% of non-Amish women in the same region. That gap does not exist because Amish women are uninformed about modern medicine. It exists because they were raised inside a system that never separated the garden from the medicine cabinet. The herb that seasons dinner on Thursday is the same herb that treats a chest cold on Friday. The 10 herbs described in this video are not a complete inventory of what grows in an Amish herb garden. They are the most common, the most documented, and the most consistently present across different communities and settlements. What connects them is not their individual properties, but the system they represent. An Amish household does not maintain an herb garden because it cannot afford a pharmacy. It maintains an herb garden because the garden is a better system, more reliable, more affordable, more integrated into daily life, and more consistent across generations than any supply chain that depends on outside sources. 71% of Amish women use herbal remedies regularly. That number exists not because Amish culture rejects modern medicine entirely, it does not, but because the herb garden handles the vast majority of common household health needs before a more serious intervention is ever required. A chest cold is addressed with echinacea and thyme before it becomes bronchitis. A sleepless week is addressed with valerian and chamomile before it becomes a chronic problem. A digestive complaint is addressed with peppermint and chamomile before it requires a doctor. The system works because it is applied early, consistently, and with the accumulated knowledge of women who learned from their mothers who learned from theirs.